So, welcome back to online lecture series on nanotechnology and surface engineering. So, let us go through the syllabus again to see which chapters we have already completed and what we are going to discuss in today's lecture and remaining lectures. So here, this is the syllabus from Gujarat Technological University. And if you recall, we have completed the basic elements of nano science and nanotechnology. Then we have completed nanotechnology and ceramics. We have a third chapter remaining, that is tools to characterize nanomaterials, that we are going to discuss in today's lecture. And the chapter number 4 and 5, that is surface engineering and different methods for surface modifications, are already completed. And as far as the last chapter is concerned, that is chapter number 6, case studies. So for this chapter I have given you some research papers or journal papers on which you need to give some presentation in your group. So in today's lecture we are going to discuss about tools to characterize nanomaterials. So let's begin that. So this is our third chapter, that is tools to characterize nanomaterials. And in this chapter we are going to discuss various ways to characterize the nanomaterial. First is X-ray diffraction, that is also known as XRD. Then the second one is scanning electron microscopy. Third will be transmission electron microscopy. Fourth is atomic force microscopy, and the last one is UV or ultraviolet, or we can say visible spectroscopy. So one by one we are going to discuss all these methods in our lectures. So we will obviously begin with X-ray diffraction. So before that we will get some general idea about what is optical spectroscopy. So here, so this is the method which uses the interaction of, just wait. So here this method uses the interaction of light with the matter as a function of either wavelength or energy in order to obtain the information about the material. So here our goal is to obtain some details about the materials, and for which we use the interaction of the light with that material, and we will get some output as a form of function of wavelength or energy. So that is the way optical spectroscopy works. And here the typical penetration depth, up to which depth that light can pass, is known as penetration depth, is of order of 50 nanometers. So we can take light inside 50 meter of any material, 50 nanometer of any material or a matter. And this area, that is optical spectroscopy, is very attractive for the material characterization, and the reasons are because it is very fast, and it is also one of the non-destructive methods of getting information about a material without breaking it or without any kind of destruction. And the results are also available in very high resolutions. So this is what optical spectroscopy means. Now let's move forward with our X-ray diffraction. So as I told you that this methodology uses light, and we penetrate this light up to 50 nanometers in a material, and the diffraction which takes place after striking on this material will give us the information about that particular material. So it is also known as XRD in the short form. It can be used to look at various characteristics of the single crystal or a polycrystal material. using Bragg's law. So you might have studied the Bragg's law in your school time, that is during your 11th or 12th standard. So we are not going to discuss that. And the Bragg's law is given by n lambda is equal to 2d sine theta. So here lambda is the wavelength and d is the diameter, and theta can be seen from this figure. Sorry, d is the depth, not the diameter. So here you can see that we are having this atomic scale crystal lattice planes. Here we have taken two different planes with the depth of d, and as you can see, the incident X-rays are diffracted with an angle of theta. So this is the way X-ray diffraction works using the Bragg's law. We will go into detail of this figure once again. So here these are few nomenclatures or important parameters. First is the lattice constant, which is n. D is the spacing. Third characteristics is the crystal structure. Fourth one is the thickness or the film, thickness of the films. The fifth one is sample orientation, the way we orient the surface. And the last one is the particle size, that is the grain size. So here smaller crystals produce broader XRD peaks. And one more important formula to obtain the thickness of crystalline is Schrerer's formula, which is given by T is equal to capital K lambda divided by B cos theta, where here T is the thickness, K is the shape constant, lambda is the wavelength, B is the FWHM, and theta is the Bragg angle. However, one disadvantage of using this method is that XRD is very time consuming, as well as it requires large volume of a sample. So here is one more figure explaining about X-ray diffraction. So here we are having two things. First is this monochromatic X-ray. Monochromatic means it is having a single wavelength. So here it incident on this random crystals or the material sample, and here we are having a detector which detects the information about these crystals. And here X-ray interactions depends on number of atoms on the plane, and this is why only a specific planes would cause the diffraction. The next method is scanning electron microscopy. So we have already completed this X-ray diffraction, that is, it uses the Bragg's law as well as Schrerer's formula, that is T is equal to K lambda upon B cos theta, and we have also discussed about the characterizations as well as the disadvantage of XRD. The next is scanning electron microscopy. So here is this is the entire devices scanning electron microscopy, which is used to obtain the information about the material at crystal level. You can pause this video and you can have a look on this. So here is the detailed principle of this methodology. So here let us discuss about this. First of all, the important part is our specimen, on which we need to have some information or details. It is kept at the bottom, and at the top we are having this electron gun, and it provides the electron beam, as you can see here, in a conical way. And then we are having first part is anode, through which it is going to pass, and it will pass through in form of a parallel rays, as you can see. The second part is magnetic lens, and after passing through magnetic lens, it passes through the scanning coils. So here we are having this scanning coils, and then they are passed in such a way that they get concentrated towards the specimen. Here we are having two form of detectors. First one is backscattered electron detector and second is secondary electron detector. So these two detectors are used. And important part is at the scanning coils we are having a signal which goes to the TV scanner. At the same time these two detector also provides the signal to the TV scanner. And at the end, as I told you earlier, that this is the specimen. So if we need to discuss about the important parts of this entire arrangement, then it is electron gun first at the top, then we have cathode, then magnetic lens, after that we have scanning coils, and then we have detectors. First is the backscattered electron detector and second is the secondary electron detector. All these three, that is scanning coils, backscattered electron detectors as well as the secondary electron detectors, sends the signal to the TV scanner. So when the beam of the electron strikes the surface of the specimen, interacts with the atom of the sample, the signals in the form of secondary electrons, that is over here, backscattered electrons, that is from here, and the characteristic X-rays are generated that contains the information about the sample's surface topography and composition. So this is the scanning electron microscopy basic principle. Now, what exactly we can achieve using this kind of scanning electron microscopy? First is we can obtain the topography, that is texture or surface of the sample. Then we can get morphology, that is size, shape, order of particles. Third one is composition, that is elemental composition of sample. And the last one is crystalline structure, that is the arrangement present within the sample. So these are the things we can obtain using scanning electron microscopy. Now there are few operation modes. In total there are three. First is primary mode, in which we can obtain high resolution, that is from 1 nanometer to 5 nanometer, and secondary electron imaging. The secondary mode has characteristic X-rays, identification of elemental composition of sample by EDX technique. The third one is tertiary mode, that is backscattered electronic images and clues to the elemental composition of the sample. So these are the three operational modes: primary, secondary and tertiary. So this is further discussion about the same scanning electron microscopy. The image is now made bit simple in a block diagram kind of a way. First, as you can see, we have electron gun, then we have condenser lens, and after that we have scanning coils, objective lens, and these are the detectors: primary detector, secondary detector, and here we are having a sample. And then we are having the signals which goes through the amplifier to the TV screen on the display. These scan coils are also providing the signals to the scan generator. So electronic devices are used to detect and amplify the signals and display them as an image on a cathode ray tube, in which the raster scanning is synchronized with that of the microscope. So this is the way scanning electron microscopy works. You can pause this video and draw this figure. You can draw this figure in your notebook for your reference. So in a typical SEM, the beam passes through the pairs of scanning coils or pairs of the deflector plates in the electron column to the final lenses, which deflects the beam horizontally as well as vertically. Therefore, the image displayed is a distribution map of intensity of the signal being emitted from the scanned area of the specimen. There are few advantages as well as disadvantages. First of all, we will discuss about the pros. The bulk samples can be observed and larger image area can be viewed. In addition, it generates photo-like images that are easy to read and analyze. Third one is very high resolution images can be captured using scanning electron microscopy. The last advantage is it can provide valuable information regarding the purity as well as the degree of aggregation. Now let's discuss something about the disadvantages also. First, that the samples which we need to analyze must have surface electrical conductivity. Otherwise, it doesn't work, because the entire method or basic principle itself is based on the electronic beams or electrons. That's why it must be conductive of electricity. Apart from that, non-conductive samples need to be coated with a conductive layer. That is also related to the first disadvantage also. Third one is it is time consuming as well as an expensive device to use. Fourth one is sometimes it is not possible to clearly differentiate the nanoparticles from the substrate. And the last disadvantage is it can't resolve the internal structures of these domains. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of scanning electronic microscopy. The next topic is transmission electron microscopy. However, we will discuss this topic in our next lecture. So we will go through a quick revision. So we started with the optical spectrometry, in which we use the light to get the information about the material as a function of wavelength or energy. Typical penetration depth is of order of 50 nanometer, and it is very fast as well as non-destructive and provides high resolution images. So this is the principle of X-ray diffraction that we discussed. Then these are the formulas and characterizations of XRD. And then we discussed about scanning electron microscopy. Here we have the basic principle, that is from the electron gun we generate electron beam which passes through anode, then magnetic lens, and then it passes through the scanning coils. We have two detectors, backscattered electron detector as well as secondary electron detector, and all these three passes the signal to the TV scanner. We can obtain topography, morphography, composition and crystalline structure. Then there are operation modes, that is primary, secondary and tertiary. This is again the repetition of the previous image only. And these are the advantages and disadvantages of scanning electron microscopy. So what we are going to discuss in our next lecture, next will be the transmission electron microscopy, the things which we can obtain from this method. This will be the basic principle. Then again advantages and disadvantages. Then we will discuss about atomic force microscopy. These are the images. And then the last topic will be UV visible spectroscopy. So that is the end of today's lecture. Let's go back to the syllabus, what exactly we have finished today. So here we started this chapter, that is tools to characterize nanomaterials. We have already completed X-ray diffraction and scanning electron microscopy. We will try to finish the transmission electron microscopy and atomic force microscopy in our next lecture, and the third lecture will be devoted to the UV, that means ultraviolet / visible spectroscopy. So in this way we are planning to complete this chapter. That is the end of our first lecture on tools to characterize the nanomaterials.